And you look ahead and that's all we see is more weather like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could use some rain a little bit.
Well, it's got to be close to swimming time in Sprout Lake.
Kids have already been in, but Britt and I, we're off to SoCal tomorrow, and it's cold down there, so we're gonna have to bring our coats. So that's hard to believe.
Ah,
We can sell them some of our weather, I guess, eh?
Yeah, that's right. We're doing a lot better than that part of the world right now.
I've been swimming in Great Central for months.
Really?
Yeah.
nothing like cold water. It's very invigorating, right?
It certainly is.
Yes.
Well, Great Central is cold all the time. Doesn't really matter what time of year it is.
Yeah.
It's true.
You must have had some antifreeze in there, Pat.
Thanks, Wayne.
Also, just so you guys know, I invited Jen from our side too. So Jen works with us. She's my EA, and she's been working this CAN pass. When I looked through the reports and I saw Mark's going to do a report, Jen has been working with CBSA and our lobbyist in Ottawa on it. So hopefully that's okay. I thought she could at least listen in and see and make sure that, maybe there's potentially some stuff that she could work closer with Mark on in order to achieve that for the airport.
Okay. Sounds great. So I think I'll call this meeting to order now. There may be other people join us a little later. Not sure, but I'll call the meeting to order. Need to recognize that we are doing our business today on the unceded traditional territory of the Hupetchesed and Sishot First Nations. We do have an agenda and everybody's had a chance to have a look at it. Somebody like to move acceptance of the agenda? We have one item on it. Shelley, mover, and is there a seconder? Penny, thank you, Penny. Anybody opposed? Then it's carried. We have also had the minutes of our last meeting held on January 19th included. Any changes, corrections, concerns? Then move to receive those minutes would be in order. Shelley, is there a seconder? A Penny, thank you. Anybody opposed? Then it's carried. All right. It's my pleasure to introduce Wayne Colson. And Wayne is going to talk to us as a delegation about some very interesting things that he's involved in. And I'm sure will be great interest and concern to all of us. So Wayne, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you very much for making the time to sit with us today.
Great, thank you, Mike. Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to introduce you to Britt, my son, who our oldest boy, who runs our aviation company. He's our chief operating officer and keeps us out of trouble every day. As you know, I was talking to Mike this morning just about the airport and just what an amazing asset that has become in the community. There was a lot of public pressure, and Penny, you remember when we looked at putting the extension to the runway in so we could bring in bigger airplanes, and then we got the lights. Although we still have to get that to the finish line, but to be able to use the airport at night. But it's become a significant engine driver, I think, in the community. We're heading towards 200 people a day out of the airport. And I think our projection, maybe Pat, you remember, it was maybe 30 or 40 went to justify the expansion on the runway, back that proposal when we were trying to drive that change. So that extra 1,000 feet of runway allowed us to bring in the C-130s and of course the Boeing 737s. And as we continue to expand the business, we now find ourselves, because we're the only company in the world that we have designers on staff. We have about 10 engineers that design our product. We then engineer it. We then manufacture it. we then install it, and then we operate it. And what that's done, it's allowed us to place ourselves in the top percentile in the world in aerial firefighting. And the outcome of that creativity and ingenuity and support within the community has allowed us to be the largest operator in the United States, the largest operator in Australia, the largest operator in South America, between Chile and Argentina. It's allowed us to expand into South Korea, and we're currently working in Africa on projects in Morocco. And what happens, of course, when we have that presence in the world, certainly for, although we actually did fly a little bit of retardant in Alberta, so that's the first time ever. So we did crack Canada for at least a week anyway. But the equipment has become highly desirable in the world, and that's of course driving what we do at home. So although we have remote bases in New South Wales, so we run the emergency services fleet for the state of New South Wales. We run a 737 and some jets and some helicopters for them. We also run a remote base in Southern California, and because of the opportunity and our work down there, flying at night in Southern California, where we have 4 aircraft now operational 24/7 in the LA basin. We've picked up a facility just east of Palm Springs called Thermal. So we have a remote base down there, 30,000 square foot building, to house all spare parts and engines and support for the rest of our operation. So we really have still anchored in Port Alberni as our hub. So we run those two remote bases. And then of course, because we're coming and going out of South America, we don't see it necessary for a 4-month operation. We just send containers down with our parts and pieces. So we haven't really anchored in South America. Certainly if we go to Morocco's long-term, we have to set up bases there, but our whole brain of the operation and support is from Port Alberni. So, and that's where some of our, challenges have been, certainly with the airport, where, because we're running 24/7 and we can't have everything everywhere, frequently we're coming into Port Alberni, and unfortunately, although you spent millions of dollars on the lights, we can't get in and out of the airport at night because of 15 or 18 trees or some reason that hasn't been removed. So what happens, we got people running around at 3 o'clock in the morning, running to the hangar, and then the airplane will come into Nanaimo and then wait for the parts to show up, somebody to drive down. So in some cases, the airplane, the support aircraft gets there before the parts do. So there's some of that thing that we wanted to highlight today is some opportunities to try and get us so we can use the thing 24/7, because we will use it 24/7. That I know that was another issue. And then customs, we struggle because we have land in Nanaimo all the time. And I've been now the last, since COVID, probably 3 years, they haven't come to our airplane once when we've come into Canada. We either, because they know us and we're in and out all the time, we have to land in Nanaimo. Nobody shows up. We phone Vancouver and they clear us, and then we drive home. So, there's some things we can do that would significantly and positively impact our business by helping us by not having to save time, especially when aircraft are broke. And of course, in our business, the only time people need us is when bad things are happening. So when we're broken, it's critical. That's like having a critical patient, on board an aircraft. So that's something that we're, highly motivated and need and look for support from you folks to see if we can, get those two things cleaned up. We look to continue to invest, and we're getting pushed hard by the world market now. And, right now, when we did the conversion on the Boeing 737, it is the largest modification ever done in a Boeing 737 in the world. And that's the highest produced airplane in the world, is the Boeing 737. So, we definitely we've had the executive of Boeing in Port Alberni, seeing what the modification that we've done. When we had the accident in Australia, it was on the Boeing, and it was a pilot error. Unfortunately, the airplane was operated, to its specifications. And we had, multiple people from Boeing. I think Boeing had about 8 people at the accident site looking at our modification. They were wondering how our mod would hold onto an accident like that. And they were thoroughly impressed. So we have this tie now with Boeing. We want to move from the 737-300 series, which is it's called the Classic, which is 98 and down. And we want to get into the NG, the 700 NG, which is the next generation aircraft, which is currently flying. That's the bulk of the 737 fleet. And we have a very good partnership with Southwest Airlines. And Southwest are the biggest operator of the Boeing 737 in the world. And we've become close with them. We bought our first 6 Classics from them. And now we've put a deal together to purchase additional 700 airframes, which is going to cause us a redesign on the tanking system. And because the bigger wings, bigger engines, a little bit different, but and a much more capable aircraft, we're going to take that project on starting in end of 2024. So that will clearly be the most capable, newest air tanker on the planet. And we have multiple countries interested in that particular airplane. So when we look at continue to expand the operation on this on that particular Boeing line, we need to increase our capacity, our throughput. And right now, each conversion on an aircraft is about 50,000 man hours to convert one of these aircraft. And we need to get that from one a year to 2 a year. And that's some of the things we're thinking about now, and is on the design table about, bringing in a 700, basically cutting it up and putting it in a jig, and then being able to pre-build the tanks in the jig, probably running 24/7 with labor, and then build these kits. And then we fly the airplanes into Port Alberni, and then we install them. And we think we can increase our throughput from 1 a year to 2 a year. We have some customers that don't necessarily want to buy a Southwest airplane, or some customers that they own their own 737 700s. They want to fly them into Port Alberni and have us install the kit in them. So that's another part of the business we're thinking about, because of course, the accident we had on the 737, it was one of the top 3 pilots in the world. Experience-wise, it had that accident, and there was multiple issues he had, but now it scared the world. So everybody wants us to fly our own airplane. So in the case of the Argentine aircraft that we're building right now in Port Alberni, that machine will be crewed by Colson crews. So although we'll be living in Argentina, we'll be moving people, we'll be fighting the odd fire in Argentina, we're actually now insuring these aircraft and operating for governments. That was kind of our model. We didn't want to take airplanes, sell them, and then let someone go plow it into the hill, and then we didn't have any control, because Boeing's pretty sensitive, especially after this one that happened. Although the pilot made multiple mistakes in that world, he also didn't kill himself, and that ability he had to fly the airplane over the ridge, touched an engine, went down. He flew it into the ground, flew it into the crash. So he actually saved himself by the skill that he had. So, he got slapped on one side, he got a pat in the back on the other. So by ATSB and all the regulatory folks. So, we're highly concerned about just protecting our model of aircraft. One of the changes we've been able to do since the accident, we've actually pushed the industry to go a little bit higher and a little bit faster. And the aircraft was 10 feet from clearing the ridge. And that's because we got into there, you get airplanes down at 150 feet, and it's a 155,000 pound airplane. And in a jet, it just doesn't react that fast. So we're Britt and I, and as a company, we decided to lead the industry by saying we're going to fly a little faster, a little higher in these big swept wing airplanes. And so we're going down and retesting our aircraft. And we have the capability to increase the flow of the aircraft to mitigate that risk. And that's what we're going to do. So we're a little higher now. Instead of dropping at 150 feet, we drop at 200. Instead of dropping at 120 knots, we drop 130. So that increase will creates a significant safety factor into what we do. And of course, the challenge that the rest of our industry has is they can't do that. They've got to fly faster and higher, and they don't have the flow rate. So it's a significant change in our industry that we're leading. And certainly with John, the pilot, we've taken him to every boardroom, every meeting we've had to tell the story. And we've been very open book because it's such a dangerous business. He's the only air tanker pilot that's ever lived in a crash in the history of flying airplanes in firefighting. So he was able to tell the story about that event, and we're really sharing with everybody and taking a very proactive, aggressive approach to change. Right now, we've got, because of the opportunity, we're bringing on 3 more airplanes in the next 12 months, our C-130s. So we'll have 1 more airplane. The 10th's down, I think, today or tomorrow. The Boeing 737 rolls out and the C-130 rolls in. And we've got 2 more C-130s in behind it. So we're operating, in the neighborhood of 30 aircraft around the world right now. And, we certainly appreciate the support we've had. We see ourselves continuing to invest at the airport to try and, as we talked about, our throughput. The old Zellers building, it's hard to believe, but it's 100,000 square feet, and it's full of between C-130 parts, Boeing parts, all our material. We run of course, we also refurbish the interiors of these airplanes as well. We'll have everybody out. If you like, Mike, I'd like to invite everyone out to see the Argentine machine before it leaves. And the work that's done is going to be absolutely stunning airplane. And it'll be the pride of the fleet of Argentina. So we'd welcome that opportunity to show everybody the aircraft and the workmanship that takes place at our local community. And we've had Boeing has been in and said this shop is creating a product like next to none. We're as good as any Boeing facility as far as the product that we're generating. So we're extremely pleased and again really appreciate the support that we've had within the community and you folks as well.
Wayne, just to interject here, how would we go about arranging to see that plane?
So I think, Mike, it's going for paint here into June, and then it'll be back for final touches. So if we could arrange a tour sometime in August before it goes to we deliver it to Argentina.
Okay.
We'd like to host everybody and a tour.
That'd be fantastic.
Britt, do you want to jump in? Did I miss anything, Britt, in some of the issues we've got that we're working through out there? And I know you want to probably talk about the Mars a little bit, but I thought I would just start with a bit of an overview of our business. Okay. Well, I think Britt's on a call, so I'm sure he's busy. All right. So our favorite topic, the Martin Mars. I'm surprised we didn't see on Facebook today that Cameron Lake fire would be out by now. Mars is here. But anyway.
I saw it.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I know people are still going, where's that airplane? We are working with the BC Aviation Museum and trying to find a home for it. And, unfortunately, I thought we had, in 2016, we took it to the Oshkosh Air Show. And the reason we took it there was to meet with the FAA to get it approved, to get the aircraft rolled onto an NREG and then be declared a World War II classification. And the plan was to actually put a VIP interior in it and take it to air shows. And we found about 20 air shows a year. There's 85 in North America a year, 85 air shows. There was 20 of them on the water that we were going to look at, put it on a circuit. And what the FAA had agreed to is to allow us to charge a couple grand a seat at the air show if we go point to point, which means take off, take them people around the block and come back. And at Oshkosh, we could have done that a zillion times. So we had this business model and designed to fly people around and try and justify, at least try and break even with it. We thought it'd be a whole lot of fun for the airplane, for the crews, and for the community and the aviation community. And what happened in as we go down on the path in 17 and 18, about at the end of 18, there was a B-17 under the same type of permit and up in New York. And they went in and they lost a couple engines and they ran her into a fuel tank and killed 9 people. And that was the end of that. So the FAA came back and said, we're now halting all rides in World War II airplanes. So that kind of set us on our heels. And then we've been working with the FAA to see if they were going to back off and allow people to go for rides in World War II airplanes. But apparently that's not in the cards anywhere in the near future. So we've worked with the BC Aviation Museum, and of course they've got no money, and it's a multi-million-dollar write-down on our part, on our balance sheet, that we're trying to figure out how do we work that and justify taking that write-down on the assets. Or we looked at some movie stuff with them and a few times, but nothing that we need to find a good home for them. So I think we're going to be able to do something with them. So we're working towards that. And then the question came up on the Philippine, and I know they've been shopping the idea about maybe Parks would take it and somebody will take it. And I know that, we would be supportive of that. The big issue for us is, we spend a lot of money every year to kind of keep them the shape they're in. If someone just stops spending money on them altogether, it could deteriorate really, really fast. And, we're just concerned about that, and that, does that all what we want? Or at least if we go into it with eyes wide open about what it's going to take to move it. But, people try and get in, frequently, and we're always, so, if it's unguarded, you're going to have people trying to get in there, kids in there, spray cans, who knows, right? So someone's just got to own the project, own the aircraft, and protect the aircraft. And I think we all want that because of the service that it's done. And I just don't know the best way. I mean, I've got it under lock and key now, and we always have people trying to get into the thing and breaking the locks on it. And, so those people, when it's not under lock and key in our house and it goes somewhere else, I think everyone just has to realize there's going to be that sort of vandalism crap that's going to go on in the airplane. And how are you going to manage that? I mean, our building, as you guys know, our building still gets tagged all the time with those freaking people that, uptown, these, just BS. But anyway, so that's all my concern is, you guys, is thinking it through, because once it comes out, it's open to the public, and I'm not sure just what you're going to have to be dealing with.
Okay, so before anybody asks some questions, get a little bit of background. I've been in touch, or a fellow from the BC Aviation Museum, a guy named Richard Mosdell, has been in touch. And he says that he's been in discussions with BC Parks, and they're quite interested and willing to accept the property that is currentently owned by Mosaic, that Colson's leases, that the Hawaii Mars, Philippine Mars is sitting on. And of course, that's the site of the old Manning sawmill, if you go back far enough. And it's not, they're never going to grow trees on it, or at least not in my lifetime. Is is it an asset that BC Parks would be willing to take on responsibility for? And as a community, it'd be nice to retain one of those planes in the community because it's so iconic for us. If we were to lose both of those planes, then there's a big chunk of our history that has disappeared. And I know anybody that has heard, and probably all of us have here, that has heard the Mars, it gives this sense of power, but it also gives this sense of safety. Here comes the machine that can put out the fire. Here comes the machine that put out the fire in the chip pile. Here's the machine that, and it just goes on and on and on, all these positive things about the Mars. And is there some way to keep it? So the BC Aviation Museum appears to be willing to accept both planes, but they would like to be able to have a group here somewhere, preferably in the Alberni Valley, to gift it to right away. And is there some deal that can be organized through a Mosaic and BC Parks or whatever, where there would be responsibility for that second plane in a way that would be respectful of the plane, but also to keep it safe and so on and so forth, which means ultimately building some sort of protective structure around it. But it also means that if the property was to go to BC Parks, there are some possibilities on that with that property, not the least of which is a huge building right there that could be used for many purposes, whether it be kayaking or canoeing or some sort of structure that could be used as a base at Sproat Lake. Is there, do we want to keep it as maybe a seaplane base? I didn't realize this, but apparently Sproat Lake is currently designated as a federal seaway runway. Didn't know, but apparently it is. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's what I'm told. So there may be some way to work a deal that could involve the plane remaining here in Port Alberni, but it would be, or at least in the Alberni Valley. But it would take lots of time, lots of effort, an organizing crew, an organizing group, a group who would be willing to accept the plane, and whether it be, the regional district take it on, or the AVRA take it on, or whether it be the Port Authority take it on, or one of the First Nations, who knows? But there are always possibilities if the circumstances are right. Anyway, so I'll turn it over to the committee and just see if there's any questions. If you've got anything you want to say about Wayne's presentation, or leave it open. Anybody? Pat, and then Penny.
A question about the trees that are preventing night landings. Are the regional district staff in conversation with the property owner and the other agencies that are involved?
Jenny?
Yeah, through the chair. Great question. Thank you, Pat. So we have put another application in with the Ministry of Forest now about tree cutting. I had hoped to have an update to the committee, but our timing was off for this meeting, but we will have another update for you. Michael will present at the next committee meeting to let you know where that's at. I think he did an update last time, and one of the issues we had was whether we go with 2-year cut permits versus long-term, and we had some issues with the province and unclarity. And so we are poking them, but we have started the process and we paid the fees and we are going through their process system. I think our plan B, will update you on how the process is going, but if we aren't getting reasonable response to that permit and a reasonable it's a simple thing. We need to cut trees. This is an airport. That's what the intention is. And so we're giving them time to work through the correct process. But then I think what we will do is we will look at requesting some support in a little more of a political pressure fashion. But at this point, we would like to be considerate and follow the process. So we will have an update for the next meeting, which should be late August, early September.
Okay, great to hear. I know that the MLA toured the Colson Group operations a few months ago, was really impressed with what she saw, and had an idea about bringing additional cabinet ministers out to see the operations, and that, you know, is an option that she's put forward. So if you need to go to plan B, please keep that in mind.
I think the other point there, folks, to note is that the airplanes have been in medevac and they can't come in at night. So that, you know, we're talking about probably someone's life potentially, which should be a priority to have, you know, I mean, yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
It also doesn't make sense that this has been a multi-year effort to try and get this done. And I had organized a meeting before Christmas that involved both the MLA and the MP to see what they could do to assist with this.
Yeah.
And was told by the CAO, no, he would take care of it. And he honestly, just to be clear, he wasn't happy that I had taken the initiative to contact those two people. And yeah, that's what they're for. And that's what we're for as a volunteer advisory, is to try and assist with these things.
My guess is if either one on this call lost a loved one because the airplane couldn't come in to help them, that would be pretty upsetting.
Yeah. Penny.
Thank you. Through the chair, thank you, Wayne, for this presentation. It's always good to hear from you and hear about your success and what the issues are. So working with the regional district is what the CAO would like to happen. We want to work with the staff rather than around them. I used to love to micromanage all the time. I've since tried to work with staff, so it works. It works well. I do have connections with the province now, being on ABICC and UBCM, so hoping that I can actually bring something forward to help to advance our situation. But I will be working with staff to ask for support. So on that, rather than just going directly, unless that opportunity occurs sort of mid-conversation. I had a question about your offer to have the Mars Martin stay within the valley. And I love that idea. I know that the whole community loves that idea. But I also remember, oh God, it's got to be like 18 years ago, we were looking at the city was wanting to take on one of the planes, and the cost was prohibitive. So do you have any idea what the cost would be, so that, because we can't just say, yes, we'll do anything. I learned early on that I never do that again. When the bill comes in and I'm responsible for saying yes, it's not a good feeling.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and of course, I know a lot of you guys kind of, we grew through kind of the McLean Mill stuff too, right?
yes.
But that wasn't, probably the best, experience a lot of us had, right? With that. So, I mean, the Mars is just one of those things. Like, I know everybody's so emotionally attached to it, but in reality, remember we had the store. I don't know if you guys remember. So when we bought the thing in 07, 08, we decided to open up the base. And during fire season, we would have people. So it started off at, great. We would have, hundreds and hundreds of people a day. Now, and then we shut it the last year because we were down to 4 or 5 people a day. So although, and that was in the summertime when you had gazillions of people driving back and forth. So although it's in everybody's hearts, I don't know that it could ever be economic. Like, you definitely need to be prepared 100 to 200 a year, maybe, of just stuff, just stuff, leaking engines, or someone's got to kind of be in charge of it. And that's the problem with volunteers. A little bit of background. The largest aviation museum in the world, Pensacola. That's why we painted the airplane, because I had to deal with those guys to treat it. It went to the Undersecretary of the Navy in Washington, D.C. And at the end of the day, he said, we're not going to spend a nickel on that airplane, because I've got to have warships and submarines and also war, but the budget's got to go. And that museum, which is the largest, they couldn't afford it. They just said, we don't have the resources. We don't have the people to look after it and to babysit it. And I heard that 100 times. Glenn L. Martin Museum in Baltimore, who built the airplanes, they're, Lockheed Martin, right? Those guys. And it was just money. No one wants to piss away, taxpayers' money on something that, we have an emotional attachment to. It's just going to, if you have enough people, and then what happens on a lot of these museums, and I'm dealing with the BC Aviation Museum right now, they're trying to do it. And my vision was, we should have got behind this one, is turn it into an aviation casino. So if you created something like that, where you put slot machines under the wings, and you only need like 100 slot machines, it's not threatening to anywhere in the market. I talked to the BCLC about that. I said, let us move it into Victoria. And, they had trouble with that, the community, but something like that, and all it was going to do is make it sustainable. Like, so you could retain and take the money from the little bit that it earns and roll it back into the aircraft, and paying people to show up and not waiting for volunteers, and then they don't show up in the mutes. Like you've got it just has to make sense. And I think we're all under the pressure today to do things that make economic sense. And that's the problem with the airplane. It's a big airplane, and it needs a lot of TLC. And who's going to pay for it? And I said to Mike and others on this thing, that's been our fear. I'm willing to piss away 100,000 plus a year per airplane just to keep them, so we can look at everything and then try and find the right home for it. Try and find the right whatever it is that someone can justify it. But that's just sitting there doing nothing as it sits right now. That's what we spend a year on it, because of the rust and, the fabric, a bunch of the airplane's fabric, all the flight controls. So and I don't know if you guys remember, but we had a bunch of drunks on the airplane during fire season. Their foot went through the fabric, and then they jumped off the airplane. The airplane went flying the next day. They did an inspection, and you couldn't see because of the hole in the fabric. The fabric came back, so you couldn't tell it was. They're out there flying over out to Vancouver with it, and the airplane starts going all over the place. We start to lose control of the airplane. And just about crashed it. And that sort of stuff, drunks on the airplane or whatever they are, and they fall through the fabric, hurt themselves, kill themselves. And they went in the water, right? So they got away. If it had been on land, they probably would have, who knows, down through the thing, tripped over, bang, dead.
Hmm.
And that's the sort of, everybody wants to get up on the airplane and stand in the wings, get a picture on the, like, that's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So I have a question now. Knowing what I do about the challenges to find a home for the Mars, what do you got? Like, what's your future plans? What will you do if you can't find them a home?
That's my goal. And what I said to the guys in Victoria, take them both, because on an airport, we know kids can't get up and climb on wings at the airport because it's secure. So that's why I said to those guys, look, guys, if you want one, you got to take them both. And they're going, well, that's expensive. I go, well, you know what? But at least we know they're protected, and we're not going to have, that sort of nonsense go on. And they're behind a gate and a fence, and people just can't access the ramp.
So is it the airport, or is it the village of Sydney that's really opposed to them coming down there?
No, I don't. I mean, our deal was, hey, you got the BC Aviation, you got to take them both. You can't take one. So that's why they're trying to dump the second one locally, because they don't want the responsibility. And I've said to them, hey guys, this shit's going to happen if we leave it in town here, and we're going to hurt somebody.
I wonder if a delegation to city council in Sydney would help out at all. If you get the community behind it.
Yeah, I mean, what we've tried to do, Penny, is put all the onus on those guys. Say, look, you want one, you got to take them both. And because there's going to be a ton of liability on that airplane if it doesn't go to a proper resting place. And we don't want to be tagged with that liability.
Mike,
Okay. Shelley.
Two potentially far-fetched ideas, and maybe you've thought of them already. I don't know the rules on donation of capital assets other than stocks and bonds. I don't know if there's any charitable asset thing that you could look at there in terms of donation.
That's what we're looking at, Shelley.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's what we're looking at, Shelley, a donation.
Yeah, and so there would be some benefit to your company with that donation, right?
That's what we're trying to do, is trying to minimize tax-wise. That's what we're trying to do.
Good. And so I guess the same arises in my mind for a question around the maintenance piece. If there was some ongoing maintenance commitment, if there would be some tax advantage for you in doing that. Personally, I feel that those planes should be kept here in the valley. I think it's a tremendous tourist attraction. I'd love to see them combined with somewhere like McLean Mill, which I think is a historic gem. And I know there's lots of issues there, but there's lots of space there. Why can't we make them an attraction with some sort of commitment from the city, et cetera, maybe some grants, and also a commitment from your company that for maintenance, if there was some tax advantage to it. I think it's something that we should look into and consider.
Yeah, I just don't know, Shelley, what would be the business case?
The business case.
The business case in order to, if you were going to say as a tourist attraction, how would you do that? How would you justify spending 150,000 a year if you're going to through them, or I don't know.
The challenge, I think, I guess that's where I was hoping there might be some sort of historical grant come in, and the donation be advantageous for your company enough to just donate them to to the city, that there'd be a tax benefit there. Anyway, those are my thoughts. The other is, and probably far-fetched, if they have to leave the country, I don't know if you've talked to anyone at the Museum of Flight in Seattle to see if there would be a connection there.
Yeah, we work with, there's probably not many museums we haven't talked to, Shelley, in North America.
Sure. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm
We've tried to find them a good
brainstorming.
home. Yeah, we tried to find them a good home. I think the BC Aviation Museum is our best option because they're really keen and they're good, they're a great organization and well respected. That's our best road to go down and to work with those folks and just make sure that eyes wide open for everybody with airplanes.
Makes
And
sense.
we find a good home for them. That's ultimately, I think, all our goal is
For sure.
whether we enjoy them in Port Alberni, we enjoy them in Victoria. The main thing is we still enjoy them and they're protected.
For sure. Just touching briefly on the tree issue, I guess when I was hearing your presentation, I immediately thought of health and safety. And I really think we should pull that card sooner than later. It's great to go through the channels, but there is actually a health and safety issue. It's also critical for the operation of the airport. And I just think, let's go through the channels, but if it becomes form over substance, let's just get to the quick of it and deal with it sooner than later. I'm sure, Jenny, I'm talking about something that is easier said than done, but it just seems to me a pretty basic issue to deal with. And I think health and safety is always a strong card, and I think it's legitimate here. The other thing I wanted to touch on is the customs issue. I think it's critical that we have a dedicated customs here. We tried to do that through the Port Authority. And I think that we should, it's something I'm going to raise at the upcoming board meeting. We're meeting tomorrow, actually. And I don't know if, Wayne, if there's any, if you've tried to work with or connected with the Port Authority around trying to get some sort of dedicated customs that would work both for the marine aspect of things and the airport before?
There has been some work done there. I don't know, Britt or Jen, can you talk to that?
Hi, good morning. So I have been in contact with the marine side of the industry. They kind of are completely separate. So unfortunately, we won't be able to utilize that within aviation. We have also done quite a bit of research on this. And so what would need to happen, because we rank as a tier 4 airport, and we would score a point system of 6 under the criteria 2 to become even a CAN pass airport site. So all that needs to happen is that we need the airport to apply for this.
So that's good information, Jen. Much appreciated. And I didn't realize that you couldn't split the marine customs with the airport customs, which on the surface, I suppose it sounds like it's completely different. But so what process does the airport have to go through to facilitate customs at the airport? Because it seems to me that is a critical piece for us to consider.
Yeah, so what the airport would need to do is apply for an AOE CAN pass, and they can do that online. I don't have the website pulled up right now, but I can provide that information to the group and we can get that documented. So they have to make an application and a business case. So all parties would need to be involved, and the support of everyone would make this go quite a bit quicker for our airport.
Sounds like Jenny's got some information there.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Through the chair, thanks, Jen. And just some follow-up questions. So my understanding is that we did put an application in, and we did it as a standalone application for the CAN pass, and it was denied. And so, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, and Mark unfortunately is away on a conference for fire training this week, but if the in my discussions with staff, because we weren't successful, another application would again fail if it was a standalone application. And so we've been brainstorming on different ideas on how to make the pass more likely to be, or the application to be successful, is to do a combination regional approach. And I think you talked about the point system. And so in order to get enough points so that it is approved, the idea was that we would sort of try to partner with an application that would also cover the Long Beach Airport. I know we did discuss the Port Authority at the last meeting, but we talked about District of Tofino and Ucluelet, and looking at just making it broader so it might have a higher likelihood of success. But Jen, maybe like, have you been able to look at the previous application that was submitted, or do you have other information?
I have not reviewed the previous application that was submitted, but I do believe that this was during a time where the staff at the local Nanaimo office, where the CBSA agents are, they were not available to make the trip to Port Alberni at that time. So I believe that there was other criteria that were put into effect when the application was denied. We are something like 89 kilometers away from the nearest customs office. So they should be able to push us through with the 6 points on the criteria too, because as long as you can score points, then you can make the application. So, and it's about bringing this together as a group to have the ACRD on board and Port Alberni, and it would be a group effort, definitely.
Jen, I really appreciate that. So if the will is to do a submission as a standalone again, and like, I guess there's little harm except a bit of staff time investment, and if it gets denied, we can still move forward with a partnership one. I would be happy to follow up with you after this call, and we can see if we can just push that forward, if you're available for that.
Yes, of course, anytime.
Great.
Okay, perfect. Because I spoke with Mark Fortune about this a couple months ago, and he seemed to think that there was some decent possibility of success with this approach, including the 2 airports. And I just haven't followed up with him to see where it's gone, but that was certainly part of his business plan, as it were. So maybe Jenny and Jen, if you can get together, maybe, who knows, maybe you can crack it open. It'd be nice to get at least a win on that. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns? Pat?
Just one other question. Jenny, how can we support your application to the Ministry of Forests?
Through the chair. So what we will do is I'm going to get an update on where we're at in the process. And I don't have that at my fingertips right now. I wish I did, because if I could report back on that, I can give you the timelines of how long we've been waiting and whether it's a reasonable amount. And basically I do feel we are getting very close to that end point and moving towards Plan B. So I think I appreciate the offer of support, and I've heard, very loud and clear that the committee, as well as ourselves, value this as a very high priority item. And so we might circle back via email to the committee before the next committee meeting, which will be in August, September. So I will get back to the committee. I can make a commitment to communicate back to the group via email before the end of the month. And that'll be the end of June.
Okay, Penny?
Thanks. I guess to staff, right now, I see the notice just came out that Highway 4 is closed through Cathedral Grove. So knowing that, so emergencies, the Medivac goes to the airport. Right now, we wouldn't be able to have any opportunity if it was nighttime to be able to use that service. So that's quite important at this point, since we're cut off, saying there's no detour available. So knowing that, I know that helicopters can come in, but I don't know if the hospital actually is accessible right now because of all of the construction that they've been going through. So I'm just wondering where we're at this moment. Thanks.
Jenny, you had a comment?
Actually, Penny brought it up. I was just going to mention that I do believe there is helicopter medevac access at the hospital. And that is accessible at the moment, but I would have to do some more research on that. And unfortunately, Mark isn't here. He would have more information. I'm sorry, but I can investigate that.
I think that's right, you guys. I think we have access to helicopters. We got a pad at the casino too that they've used frequently if they need. So he can get in and out. It's the aircraft. If someone needed to pop down south or something where they're moving patients around, and it was in the evening, Penny, you're right, it would be shut down. That person wouldn't be able to get to where they need to get to.
I think that really helps us with our business case to get those trees out of there. It's gone on for too long, and I'd really like to see this out there on the regional district next agenda somewhat, so that we can discuss our next push. Thanks.
Hey, the old logging days, we just go take those trees down. Good old days. We'll take trees down for eagles like that.
Let's do it. Just do it.
Yeah, that's right.
I never said that.
Program. There you go.
Yeah.
Dan, did you have any questions?
No, I'm listening intently, but no questions. I'm in Parksville, so I'm supposed to be heading back because they're closing the highway. Yeah. So
sounds like you might be too late. You might have to go buy a lake couch and.
Good luck. Yeah.
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 Fly in.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, do you need any motions from us on any of these issues to put them on record fully?
Well, we haven't made even a consensus as to how we should respond to this, but it's clear with our small group today that we don't have any answers for the BC Aviation Museum. And as Wayne says, his is an offer, take them both. And even if they keep the second one as parts, I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine the logistics of moving those planes to Pat Bay. I just can't imagine. But it must be pretty complicated, even just thinking about it.
Well, we're going to fly them. So what we're going to do is the Hawaii, we'll pop it over and then we'll swap the motors and props and just put them on the Philippine and flop it over as well. That's kind of what we're thinking. I mean, the airplanes aren't, they're in pretty good shape because we've kept them that way. We've been, like I say, kept them up. So.
You're going to fly them over downtown Victoria on the way to the museum?
Yeah, go for a ride. Want to go for a ride, everybody?
As long as nobody's put a foot through the fabric, yes.
Well, that's okay. We could have knocked that fire out on that ridge.
Yeah. Yeah, we could have.
Yeah, but anyway, I'll continue to work with them. Certainly we have the best interest of everybody on this call as well. We want to make sure they're put in a good place. And if we'll work with everybody on this. We just want to make sure eyes wide open for anybody who says, hey, let's throw her over in an area over here. Let's just make sure that that's a really good decision. And we got buy-in and we've got, a good go forward plan as she deteriorates or, gets attacked with, stuff.
Yeah. Penny?
One last question about your operations, and you don't have to answer. I understand it could be confidential or whatever, but just wondering if there's any interest in BC investing in any of your planes going into the future, knowing that BC is burning. And
interesting question, Penny, and I'd love to answer that one. So what's really cool about Alberta is they're the first ones in Canada that have tried one of our airplanes. And it's not just us, but it was the new generation of airplanes. So Canada is still running World War II aircraft. You remember that story from the BC government that the Mars is an old, well, the airplanes they have is maybe 5 years newer. So it's hard to believe that we get killed, old and ancient, and yet their aircraft now we're running 1990s plus tech and state-of-the-art technology in the world. So Alberta's done a great job. I've been impressed. We're kind of going, oh, well, are we just in there for political? But they put a team with us. They have one of our jets and they have one of the C-130s. And they really did training with us. We worked together on working with other planes. They're trying all kinds of different ways. And that's all you can ask is, hey, try it. Every other country does, but Canada. I mean, like I say, we're in South America, Australia with these airplanes, and in the US. So it's great that they're really, and we feel we're being utilized really optimally. And anytime you do that, that's all you can ask for. If they can't afford it or they don't want to move to that technology, that's fine. But that's why we win every contract that these airplanes are bid on, because of the efficiency. So it's good. We're getting a shot, and I'm sure Alberta will. And we've actually asked Alberta for a meeting to talk about fighting fire at night, because Canada, we've done it for 5 years now. We're the largest operator in the world. We're the only operator in the world. We run the LA basin, protect 17 million people in LA, 365, 24/7 with our fleet, with our system. And no one in Canada has asked us, hey, we'd like to consider flying at night. So we're now reached out to Alberta, talking to them about night operations and just how effective and efficient it is, because we've got all kinds of case studies we've done for the US government now. And that's their, and the US government, they're putting out contracts to go fight fire at night. So we're trying to, now whether BC wakes up and wants to try it, but they're one town away from saying we got to change.
Yep. Hopefully that's not Port Alberni.
And that's why we're in other parts of the world, because every time they kill a bunch of people in wildfire, they get funding, they find the funding, and then the first ones we seem to be is we get the call to go in there and have a look. So we're not just fighting fire, we're running intel as well. So we run intel helicopters, intel jets, as well as the large air tankers, the large helicopters flying 24 hours a day. So that's the transition in the market that we've actually been blessed and had the opportunity to create. And that's why we sit in these boardrooms around the world, is because we're a one-shop stop.
I'd love to see the political push happen again in BC for a contract with yourself, especially being a BC grown company. I would really love to support you moving forward. We'll see what we can do for.
Well, thank you, Penny. We had our MLA out, and we've, Gord Johns, he's been multiple times to our facility. We have great support there, but it's the change that has to happen, and I think it's the way we look at wildfire is different. So, we had an instance like this, Cameron Lake. In where we work is they hit everything with the biggest aircraft they can as hard as they can. That philosophy is flowing through the whole world. It hasn't started here though.
Yeah.
So people say, oh, I'll send a little helicopter and a couple guys and go get. Well, if a fire starts and it's 2 acres in the first minute, in the second minute it's not 4 acres, it's 10 acres. In the third minute it's 14 acres. And so because of the climate change and the way the fuel has dried out so quickly now, and with the winds and just the change in climate, it's not the same. And and that's why we've got to get on these things really, really quickly, have fast, agile equipment, and that's what we have.
A big problem with BC too is there's so many fires. You have to get on them and put them out here, there, and everywhere. And that we just don't have the manpower to be able to attack all of the fires that are happening. And with climate change, you're right, like things are changing. And I think we need to adapt with it.
Yeah,
if you look,
I think if everybody looked at, just stats, and one of the, as we run our business. We just look at statistics, and that's what every state's doing right now, and that's why they're getting their own aircraft. That's why they're running. The whole market is so different from what it was 5 years ago, and we're still stuck in doing the same stuff, different day. This market hasn't moved at all. Every other market is changed, and like I say, it's quicker, faster, bigger, and power and volume. That's how you chase these fires. Get on them really quickly and kill them. Move to the next one. And that's just not how we run here. The whole world is super heavies, lift helicopters, and big airplanes, except here. Eventually they will. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Okay, I'm conscious of everybody's time, and particularly Wayne's time. Are there any final comments that people have? Then Wayne, on behalf of the advisory committee, thank you so much for spending the time with us today and talking about your business, and particularly talking about the Mars and what the possibilities could be for that. I'm not sure how we could assist, but certainly as a committee, we would certainly contribute in any way that we can. And Jenny, thank you so much for your contributions today. You've got your finger on lots of information that impact and our airport. There's the two items that we really need to move forward, and one is the customs and the other one is the tree removal, which is probably even a higher priority. We need to get on that. And I know that when you and I spoke, you were hopeful that there might be something would break this fall. So I don't know where that's at, but it'd be great if we could announce some success with that, because we need it. And we need it to justify the investment that the community's put into that airport. It's not the only thing, of course, but we just want to use the airport as much as it can possibly be used. So having said that, I don't believe there are any other items on our agenda. And Shelley?
Sorry, just wanted to raise an issue, and this is, sorry, I don't know if Wayne would want to take your time, but I'm hoping that we can actually set some meetings ahead of time and have some dedicated meeting times instead of staff having to spend so much time trying to get meeting dates and all the time and energy. I was wondering if it's possible to actually set some predetermined meeting times as a default, and if we need to change, we could cancel those.
That's an interesting comment. In our terms of reference, the meetings are actually the third Thursday of every third month, so 4 times a year.
Right. Thanks.
So that means that our next meeting should be the third Thursday of September.
Okay. I would like to see our meetings actually follow that pattern rather than the ad hoc, time-consuming, try and find a date that works for everyone.
No,
if that's possible, Mr. Chair.
I absolutely agree.
Thank you.
Have had these discussions already. So
thanks.
So the third Thursday in September is UBCM.
Okay.
Just saying, it won't work for me.
So maybe we could then revisit that, have staff revisit a dedicated meeting time that would work. And, we're all busy and it's just taking, I can see hours from staff time. We get a date and then it changes. All of us need to have some sort of reliance on a fixed schedule in terms of efficiency and time. So I'm wondering, Mr. Chair, if we could have staff try and set those dates. Maybe we just change that September date to accommodate UMBC. And I think if they're set as a default date, we can always adjust, because we will have to apparently in September.
Yeah, I agree. Even me, who's retired, I still need to know in advance when these
Great.
meetings are gonna happen.
Yeah, and I'm concerned about staff time and efficiency of everyone's time, respect, etc. So thank you for that. And it would be great if staff could send out something if that works for you, Mr. Chair, to remind everyone, and maybe we could modify that September date, and then we can put them in our calendars, and those that can make it will, and those that can't will have to send regrets.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Mike, well, thank you. Thank you, Michael, and Jenny and Shelley, Dan, Penny, Pat, thank you all. You guys all be well. And let me know if we ever want to jump on a call. I'm always available.
Okay.
Thanks for everything.
Take care,
Thank you so
everybody.
much, Wayne.
All the best, everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Having said that, I think that actually brings our meeting to a close. And Shelley, thank you for bringing that up. A motion to adjourn would be in order at this point. Shelley, seconder. Oh, let's get Dan in there.
Yeah, let's say Dan was the firster.
Okay. Anybody opposed?
Good with that. Okay. I hope
Okay.
you're safe driving there, Dan.